Inspired talks of Swami Vivekananda, Pranam Mantra. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suray Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. We have been discussing what Swamiji talked on July 30th, 1895. As I mentioned, Swamiji had talked about quite a few things on that day. And what we will discuss today is about the importance of the absolute, the relative world, and the human beings. Think of the popular concept of heaven. And that is the best way to understand what Swamiji is discussing here. According to those popular beliefs of heaven, where you have, say, a beautiful garden, water flowing, and trees full of flowers and blossoms, etc., and you can enjoy anything. You can go anywhere. You can know anyone, etc. However, there is a catch. When we are talking about this kind of heaven, there is some kind of movement involved. There is some kind of progression involved. Movement is progression, whether that be of the body or of the mind. But that goes against the fundamental principle of God. That goes against the fundamental principle of absolute. Those of you who have been listening to the series of talks on Inspire Talks, or maybe some of the other talks that we have delivered on Upanishads, etc., you might have you might have by now understood that when there is no creation at that point of time, in fact, there is no time, God alone exists. So when, say, Christianity discusses in the beginning was God, or only God was there and said, let there be light, etc. When there is only God, that is the state of the absolute. In that state of absoluteness, in that state of absolute, there cannot be any motion, there cannot be any progression. So when we have these popular beliefs of progression, movement, there is something seriously wrong with the understanding of the highest heaven. Even in the highest heaven, there cannot be any kind of movement, any kind of progression. To give you a very beautiful example, in the Hindu system of thoughts, we have this concept of Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. Vishnu, the abode of Vishnu is the highest. Sometimes we we come across passages in the Puranas where Vishnu Lok is the place where one stays with Lord Vishnu, enjoys company, etc., etc. But if you study the Vedas very carefully, you don't have to find special meaning, just even the plainest of meaning, but carefully. You find that Vishnu Lok is described as that state of conscious light, that state of conscious light. And naturally, since it's the state of conscious light, there cannot be two. So, Vishnu and Vishnu Lok, they are one and the same thing. God, being with God and having this or that kind of fun, they are contradictory in terms. This is the problem with the inferior intellects. When the inferior intellects describe heaven, they take the pleasure of this world, glorify it, multiply it many times, and think of heaven where you will have all this. Swamiji cautions because this concept of heaven is there in every religion. And then you have lower heaven, higher heaven, etc., etc., whatever that might mean. Says all progression is in the relative world. Whenever you think of motion, motion involves time, Time belongs to the relative world. So every progression belongs to the relative world. Apparently, this may sound very simple, but no, it's not that simple because this one sentence, all progression is in the relative world. This one sentence explains what is this relative world, that is the world where we live, including all the heaven, all the hell, all the patal lok, all the spheres of existence, and the absolute. Absolute is that state of freedom where there is no motion, where there is pure joy, where existence is joy, existence is knowledge. The moment we talk about relative world, the state where you keep progressing, keep moving this way, that way, doing good, doing bad, etc. So all progression is in the relative world. Say extremely simple sentence, but contains profound philosophy and explains the whole of spiritual philosophy. So, and then Swamiji says, the human form is the highest and man the greatest being because here and now we can get rid of the relative world entirely, can actually attain freedom. Dear listeners, most of you, or at least many of you, must have heard that human beings are the highest, the best. Now, what about the gods? What about the angels? Now, we find this thing in the Upanishads too, and we find this idea portrayed in popular culture, in poetry, etc. too. That human beings are the highest. There's a beautiful book by Voltaire, Micromegas. Those of you who have some liking for reading, you might have read Micromegas. It's actually Voltaire was a very interesting character who got thrown out of his own country, and for a time he was in England. There he learned English, and that was a time when Gulliver's Travel had come out, and he loved that book. And based on that, he wrote this book, Micromegas. Now, Micromegas is a very interesting book, and there are beings from different spheres. One of them is something like 8 mile tall, another one is 12 mile tall, and this 8 mile tall person has developed an inferiority complex because he is one of the shorter ones of his sphere. It's a very funny book. So he is crossing through this earth and he is flying over the ocean when he feels that there is something moving in the ocean. Now you can imagine, like Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean is just at its highest, it's around 5 kilometer deep. Now somebody who is 8 kilometer tall, 8 mile tall, it will be like walking through a pond. So there he sees basically a ship in those days, ship that traveled by sails. So they become curious and lift the ship in their palm. And then some kind of speaker is made, and there is conversation, and lots of things happen. People who are on board on that ship, they go on talking about the earth, etc., etc. And one of those philosophical minded persons, he says that we are the best in the world, in the universe. And the philosopher says, we don't believe that you exist. Now, when he said that we are the best in the world, these micromegas, the two of them, they start laughing so much, just thinking that, just just imagine the sheer impudence of these people who think that they are the best. And they laugh so much and so violently that the ship falls from their palm back into the ocean. And then they cannot find it and they just leave. It's a satire on some of the philosophical outlooks that was there in the France during the time of Voltaire. So, are we the best in the world, in the universe? Yes, we are. But take any of our powers, other creatures have better powers. Even if you talk about mind, the gods have a better mind. Indian scriptures say that no, it's not that. It's the potential to be free, potential to be perfect. A few days ago, I went to some corporate house to deliver a talk. It was their foundation day, and well, I told, see, we monks, we have the same thing to say. If you just keep on listening to our speeches very carefully, you'll see that it's the same thing packaged differently. Anyway, there was one gentleman from Tamil Nadu. He loved my talk, and then he was one of those executives, and he came and asked me, Swamiji, why did you become a monk? Now, what do you tell? Because people expect that there will be some particular incident, something that might have changed the course of your life. It's not that. If a person becomes a monk, the preparation and the journey as a monk has been continuing for many births. So I told that, look, I knew the monks since my childhood and I aspired for freedom. Even today, I aspire for freedom. The gentleman was so disappointed by my answer that, oh, acha, okay, and he left. Freedom is perfection. You go through the works of Swamiji and you find this one thing coming repeatedly: perfection, freedom, perfection, freedom. Human beings are the only species that we know of through all our scriptures that has the potential to become divine, to be free, to be perfect. Why? Swamiji will explain. Not only we can, but some have reached perfection. So no matter what finer bodies come, they could only be on the relative plane and could do no more than we, for to attain freedom is all that can be done. This again is a very interesting statement from Swamiji, that whether you are a god, you are an angel, whoever you are in this relative world. And if you are in this relative world, the goal of this world is one and only one: to reach the absolute, to attain perfection, to attain freedom. So ultimately, you are in no way superior to us as far as the goal of life is concerned. The goal of life for a god like Indra, Mitra, Varuna, etc., is the same: to attain perfection. Goal of life for an angel is the same: to attain liberation. That way we are all same. But we have one advantage which these gods do not have. They are very powerful. For example, think of a vulture. Vulture has very powerful eyes, and we cannot see as far as a vulture can see. A lion has tremendous physical strength that we lack. So we say that we have superior mind. What about the gods? They have better minds. Yes, they have. But they are stuck in a rut. Angels, gods, demigods, whatever divine beings, they are all stuck in a rut. The angels never do wicked deeds, so they never get punished and never get saved. Swamiji is talking from the Christian standpoint. To be saved, you have to do wicked things according to Christian belief, but not according to the Hindu system. In Hindu system, you do wrong things, you get deviated from the path, you correct yourself and move ahead. And then comes the crux. Blows are what awaken us and help to break the dream. Oh, dear listeners, this is a very powerful statement. Blows are what awaken us and help to break the dream. Swamiji is taking the ultimate standpoint of Advaita, implying that this relative world is dreamlike in the sense it doesn't have absolute reality, but we all love it. The moment you find that somebody is talking about giving up the world, somebody is talking about things, thousand things, it only means that the person has been beaten up thoroughly by the circumstances and the society. Now, blows are a very, very, very interesting thing that we are so scared of blows. We are so scared of pains. When a person says that I'll leave everything and go to the Himalayas, go to a cave, go to a forest, what does that person mean to say? That he's so sick of the blows and the pains that he wants to avoid them in future. But even if they go, for example, we are monks, does that mean that we don't get blows? Does that mean that we don't get pain? We get very much. Think of Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was doing intense tapasya. He had his share of failure in life. And towards the end, he was tempted by one of the divine nymphs, Menaka. He had his fall. Now that was a blow. And then he realized that he had been dragged down. He got up, moved ahead, became more intense about his tapasya. Another nymph was sent, and this time Vishwamitra looked at him in such a way that that Apsara ran away in fright. What are blows? Blows break the dream house in which we live. Those of you who might have read my book, Tia, Parrot's Journey Home, you'll find that there are two kinds of situation that Tia faces. One is when Tia gets pain and runs away from that place. And there are places where Tia enjoys, feels that Tia is rested, he or she, whatever that be. When life is all smooth, when life is all going honky dory, as they say, it means that you are in a state of rest. State of rest, resting. State of rest, state of resting. Peace and joy, state of resting. If everything is going well with you, there is something seriously wrong with you, provided you are spiritual. So, does that mean that I'm categorizing people as spiritual and non spiritual? No, I am not. Because in this world, everyone is a spiritual person. There is no one in this world who is not a spiritual person. Just that some people are striving to be spiritual consciously, others are doing the same unconsciously. Every time there is pain, every time there is hurt, Mother Nature tells, okay, enough, now move. And that's what happens. For example, what happens when a person takes a divorce? Those of you from America would know that it's quite popular in America to take a divorce. Why? Simply because you feel that you got so much of pain from this person. You got so much of blows from a particular person that you say enough, no more. Sometimes you get tempted. Now, when we say tempted, it only means that you feel that this you have outgrown this person, you need someone else. And sometimes people also come back when they realize that that was a mistake. The idea is that whenever there are blows, your dream house, your glass house is shattered and you are forced to move out. So, should we aspire for blows? No, you don't have to aspire for blows because whether or not you want, blows will come. Mother Nature won't let you stay in peace. And secondly, if you don't have those moments of rest, you will crack. You'll go into depression. That means you will go hurtling downward. And if you go hurtling downward, the distance that you had covered is lost and you have to begin afresh. Now that's pathetic. That's why Mother Nature has made like something like Sarai Khana, the inn of old times. A weary traveler, he's walking or maybe on horseback and finally finds a resting place. Happiness is just like that. If you're feeling happy with your family, if you're feeling happy with your work, if you're feeling happy with whatever you are doing, it only means that you have stagnated. It's not true about sadhana. Now, in case of sadhana, something very funny happens. Those of you who have done a lot of sadhana, all of those of you who do lots of japa, lots of dhyan, you know that if you do lots of japa and dhyan, you may start enjoying japa and dhyan. That's the best thing that can happen to a sadhak in this life. But your problems in this world will mount. This is something people don't realize that every spiritual person, every spiritual person has to suffer a lot simply because they are into sadhana. It will come as social disrespect. It will come as some kind of mental anguish or physical ailment. In one of the three forms, the nature will hit you. When nature is hitting you, it's not punishment, it's to coax you forward, to coax you forward. Once you feel that you have been disrespected in the society, it only means that now you move away. Don't go back to them. Somebody hurts you, somebody gives you pain. You know that it's time to move forward. I find this whole thing so engaging. I decided to write a book, Failing Upward. I'm working on it. That how some people, when they face pain, when they face obstacles, they just sit down, they collapse, and there are some who move forward. How they move forward, why they move forward, why we collapse, etc. It's a very fascinating subject. How the life chain snaps, according to Vedanta. Now, in other religions, well, there are lots of things. God sends you that pain, and God tastes you. And utter nonsense. These are utter nonsense. According to Vedanta, you alone exist. You are tempted by the relative world that you have created. You also need to get out of this place. The only way is to break the cage. How do you break the cage? By giving blows. Blows are the pains. So, pain. They are the pain and it's blows. They are the real teachers in life. Swamiji talks about it repeatedly. Once he wrote to Sister Niveta, Margot, he used to call her Margot, tell me how much you have suffered, and I'll tell you how great you are. Because there is suffering, and you take those blows, it only means that you are great. They show us the insufficiency of this world and make us long to escape, to have freedom. If you have blows, if you get blows, if you are getting enough blows in different forms, it may be physical illness, it may be some kind of mental trauma, it might be some kind of social disrespect, loss of honor, etc. All these things say move forward, move forward. And that's what the great ones do. They move forward. The ordinary ones, they sit down, they lament, they shed tears. A thing dimly perceived, we call by one name. The same thing, when fully perceived, we call by another. Swamiji is discussing Maya. When you see a rope in dim light, you call it by one name. When you see it properly, you call it by another name. Ultimately, it's all object. So this relative world is actually pure Brahman. It's pure Atman. Just that the light is dim. The higher the moral nature, the higher the perception, and the stronger the will. So Swamiji has been talking about lots of things, and subject must have changed. What he says is that as your moral nature becomes higher, like that of the sages, your perception changes. That's why you will see that the creation by the great sages and the words of the prophets inspire us. They seem so sensitive. They seem so profound. Why? Because they are establishing the higher moral nature. So naturally, their perception changes. Now, a person who is lustful, his perception of this world will be different. And the same world, when seen by the sage, will be different. So then Swamiji talks about the reason of the harmony between thought and matter is that there are two sides of one thing. Qualitex, which divides itself into the external, internal and external. Dear audience, this is a very interesting thing which we have also discussed in Raj Yoga. Those of you who are interested may listen to our Raj Yoga talks. And it's a very interesting series of talks, Raj Yoga. Normally, we think that this object, pen, this object, pen, is different from my thought. But we also realize that there is a coordination between my thought of pen and the external pen. And the whole of Western philosophy is basically based on this: objectivity, subjectivity, idealism, objectivism, etc. But are these two different things? Now, according to subjectivism, according to idealism, they're only ideas. The objects that we perceive, they are also ideas. So we are not going into the philosophy. Let's see. let's see this entire world in a very simple manner. Whatever we perceive, whatever we gather through our five senses, ultimately they come to our mind. And mind just puts some kind of adjective. It's coming from the eyes, coming from the ears, etc. Now, when I look at this pen, mind knows that this is coming from my eyes. And if somebody says pen, it knows that it's coming from the ears. But those adjectives are actually not very important for the mind. Now, when they overlap, we call such persons for whom this overlapping is there insane, because they mix up things. However, as far as mind is concerned, for it, past and present, object and words, they are all same. Mind reacts nearly in the same way, whether it is from the past, or from the present or expectation from future. And mind reacts in the same way, whether it's an object or an idea. Those of you who might have loved tamarind in your young age, or you love pickles, just think of pickles and your mouth starts watering. They say mouth watering tastes, etc. Why? Because mind doesn't make much distinction. Not only that, when there is an anticipation of pain or anticipation of pleasure, this was worked out by William James. Both pain and pleasure are far more intense than actual pain and actual pleasure. Ultimately, mind cannot distinguish that. Mind is more like a weighing scale. For it, it makes no distinction between objects and the ideas. Swamiji says that is the same X that has divided itself as external and internal. This is a very, very, very profound philosophy. And those of you who have some idea about Vedanta, some idea about yoga will know that in actual creation, according to Vedanta, actual creation according to Sankhya, which has been borrowed by Vedanta and is practiced by yoga, is a mind. Mind evolves. And as mind evolves, it gives birth to two different sets of things. One becomes ideas, and other becomes, that is, words, and other become objects. Words, ideas, and objects. These are one and the same. To the mind, these three are one and the same. Whether you whether you have pain as an object, pain as a word, and pain as an idea, they are all same to the mind. This is This is best described by the Greek concept of logos, shabda. The ancient word in the Vedas, etc., for this was shabda. Shabda, shabda is the totality. Shabda means the word, the spoken word. Shabda means idea, the mental word, and shabda is creation. When God creates, He creates through shabda. So from there, now Swamiji moves on to paradise and says, the English word paradise comes from the Sanskrit pardes, which was taken over into the Persian language and means literally the land beyond. Pardes means the land beyond, or the other world. The old Aryan always believed in a soul, never that man was the body. So when you say Pardesh, which became paradise, it was the actual me. Actual me was, actual me is the soul, not this body. So somebody dear to me is dead. Where is he gone? Pardesh. Gone to a distant land, and that became paradise. Well, as Swamiji says, that might be the root of the word. Their heavens and hells were all temporary because no effect can outlast its cause, and no cause is eternal. Therefore, all effects must come to an end. Swamiji is discussing the Aryan concept, not the Western concept of heaven and hell. That heaven and hell, these are the outcome of certain acts. Because these are outcome of certain acts, and no act can be eternal. So no heaven, no hell can ever be eternal. Then Swamiji talks from Mundak Upanishad. I'll just tell what Swamiji says and the idea of Mundak Upanishad. We have not yet covered Mundak Upanishad in English. We will be covering it soon. So, Mundak Upanishad is about one analogy is taken, metaphor is taken of two birds. One is a higher bird and there is the lower bird. Lower bird tastes the fruit, sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet. And when it tastes the sweet, it enjoys. And sometimes it tastes the bitter. It leaves that branch and goes to some other branch. And that's how it keeps on rising and rising and rising. and ultimately it reaches the highest branch. And there, throughout this journey, the lower bird realizes that the higher bird never gets involved in any of this eating. So naturally, the higher bird never goes through the experiences of pleasure and pain. It's always calm, tranquil. And once the lower bird reaches the higher, realizes that actually, and in essence, the lower one was the same with the higher one. Is the Vedantic concept that explains God and soul, God, soul, and the universe. This universe is like that tree that offers you bitter fruits and sweet fruits. Bird is the soul that tastes different kinds of fruits. And as it tastes the bitter ones, it says no more, moves away. So he found all at once that there had never been two birds, but that he was all the time that upper bird, serene, majestic, and immersed in his own glory. It may be difficult for you to understand how is this possible, but you can think of a mirror that's reflecting a sun, and you as you beam that reflected sun, imagine that reflected sun has sensation. So naturally, that reflected sun will feel that now it's having a good time. It's at some nice place. I will feel that it's in some dirty place, in some ditch, some mud. And once in a while, it looks at the sun up in the sky and feels, oh, so serene, so majestic. And then finally, the mirror breaks. What happens to that image? What happens to that sun? Nothing. It merges with the original sun. And it had never become the sun of this relative world. These analogies are used in different ways and variously in different scriptures, just to impress the idea that you are not this body and you don't belong to this relative world. You don't belong to this relative world. We have identified ourselves with this relative world. We think we are this body. We think this world to be true. And that's why all this. That was the end of discussion on that day. Then it was 31st July, the next day. And Swamiji is discussing spirituality and ethics. Nowadays, you might have heard this popular saying. Many people say that I'm spiritual and not religious. God knows what they really mean by that. If they mean to say that they are not religious, in the sense that they're not going to follow the rituals of the religion to which they belong, rather they believe in ethical system. They should be listening to this. Luther drove a nail. Luther, Martin Luther, who was the founder of the Protestants, a nail into religion when he took away renunciation and gave us morality instead. Martin Luther, who founded the Protestant Protestant sect, he moved away from the traditional Christian belief that is Catholics. And in Catholic system of Christianity, renunciation plays a very important role. Poverty, chastity, obedience. Now, how much they follow, that's not important. Now, simply because people do not follow, that does not mean that you have to lower the ideal. And Catholic set of monks have given us some real great sense, finest of noble souls. How? By the power of their renunciation. Now, Protestants could marry, they could have children, they could draw salary, etc., etc. The idea of renunciation was gone. Instead, He laid a lot of stress on morality. Now, it sounds so beautiful. Why practice renunciation when you are not fit for it? Why practice renunciation when you have weakness for the flesh? Because if you take away the ideal, the possibility of somebody rising to the highest level is gone forever. And when you say morality is everything, what guarantee is there of people who say that morality is everything will be moral? Like in India, every politician talks about building the nation. And we know what's happening. How much is corruption? And see, not every politician is corrupt, but but there is corruption. Everyone says that they are into serving the nation. Now, Swamiji was not at all in favor of these Protestants. Atheists and materialists can have ethics, but only believers in the Lord can have religion. Religion is superior. When people say that they are spiritual and not religious, only word that can be used about them that they are stupid. When you say that you are spiritual and not religious, essentially you mean to say that you believe in ethics, you believe in morality, and you don't believe in renunciation and everything else that religion has to offer. You are just being plain stupid. Because if there is no God, and if you're not ready to give up everything for God, then why be ethical? There's a very serious problem. Swamiji was dead against philosophies of John Stuart Mill and all who talked about ethics, maximum good of maximum people. What nonsense, utter nonsense. Why should I be ethical when there is no God? I remember one of my brother monks, he was young in those days. He said that if somehow I can believe that there is no God, oh, I would engage myself in the most licentious acts. Morality, ethics, etc. These are mere words. You may have some ethical people. For example, let's take the case of Socrates. We don't know if Socrates was a religious person because the concept of religion as we understand today was not there, but he was a highly ethical person. But how many Socrates has the world produced? And the best samples of persons that we have in this world have come from the world of religion. Religion divides, no doubt about it. Religion also makes people great because any system that's highly useful will also produce counterfeits. Counterfeits will always be there where a system is really working well. In India, Indian rupees is the currency, and partly because of these mischievous people, and partly because of our enemy nations, we have huge number of counterfeit notes moving around in the country. We don't have counterfeit dollars here. No one cares for dollar. No one accepts dollar here. Maybe some touts accept. No one else. So when this system works, when the system is producing great people, producing something great, know that there will be counterfeits. If there are great saints, there will be fake saints. Anything in the society, wherever you find some kind of greatness, like now with the internet there and the web world there, so many fake sites for this and that. You search for something, particularly if it's popular, immediately you will be directed to this site and that site, and the operating system has a difficult time trying to save us from these mischief mongers. The wicked pay the price of the great soul's holiness. Think of that when you see a wicked man. Swamiji now again moves to some other topic. There's a wicked people who pay the price for the saints. Just as the poor man's liver pays for the rich man's luxury, so is it in the spiritual world. This is Swamiji's own idea because we don't find this idea anywhere else. The terrible degradation of the masses in India is the price nature pays for the production of great souls like Mirabai, Buddha, etc. Now, see, the explanation given by later monks about this is think of storming a fort. Enemy fort, I mean. What happens? If 100 soldiers attack, maybe 90 would die and 10 would survive. Now, the 10 survivors, if they forget the dead ones, it's pathetic. Those of you might have read the book Odyssey. It's a wonderful book. When Odysseus was traveling by his ship and he faced Scylla and Charybdis and other problem, other monsters, etc., he lost some of his great friends and he couldn't tell them in advance that this is going to happen because these sacrifices had to be made. And after that, when they rested for the night, when they found an island, they prepared meat, ate, and after that, they shed tears in the name of the lost ones. When you have a higher ideal, when a society goes by higher ideal, it's like storming a fort. The ordinary ones who are not ready for it will be crushed, and some will be victorious, some will be successful. The society remembers the great ones, but the masses are neglected. Uh, See, in today's India, literally, see, we are in 2023. Just go around India, you won't find a single place in India where somebody can go and stay in peace. When I was young monk, I had been to places like Haridwar and Rishikesh and Uttarkashi. And these places were known as places for the monks. Monks would stay, and there were places where if you went, you would get some chapatis and some dal just for your bare sustenance. Now you go to Rishikesh, people from Delhi, Punjab, Haryana, etc. Everyone has a house there. On Friday night, they go there, they spend their weekend and come back. It's all enjoyment, enjoyment. Same with Uttarkashi. It's a district town, and the whole place is that sense of renunciation, the sense of tapasya from these places are gone. Same with Haridwar. There are some ashramas, but but the serenity is lost forever. The idea is that when you have this kind of condition prevailing in the country, you shouldn't be expecting some great monks to come up. You shouldn't expect that you will have hugely spiritual people because when you start taking care of the masses, when you say that let everyone enjoy, when enjoyment becomes ideal, it's like living in a comfortable and safe fort. No one will die. There will be no daring act. There will not be any brave soldier. Choice is yours. Now, what Swamiji was trying to tell us was let's go for diluted materialism. That means let there be materialism, but in measured quantity. Let people have their fill. Let people have some enjoyment, but let there be no mad rush for enjoyment as we find in some of the Western countries. So the possibility of creating great souls will remain there. So Swamiji says that India produced greats like Mirabai and Buddha. Why Mira and Buddha? We had lots of, in hundreds and thousands. But the price had to be paid by the ordinary masses. Choice is yours. From there, Swamiji moves on to talking from Gita. And from there, Swamiji will be talking about bhakti. Because the topic is changing, so let's let's stop here. Even otherwise our time is up. So we'll take up this discussion next day. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.